They always say that the grass is greener on the other side, and for these 10 WWE wrestlers, their firings actually benefited them. Number 1. Swerve Strickland. For nearly a decade, Swerve Strickland was killing it on the independent scene, but Lucha Underground was where the former WWE star truly became a hot commodity. Known as Killshot in Lucha Underground, his biggest feud against AR Fox gained attention amongst fans for one of the most brutal and entertaining feuds in the wrestling landscape, so it really wasn't a surprise that Swerve got an offer from WWE in 2019. Now going by Isaiah Swerve Strickland, there was some concern about his future where Swerve was treated as another guy on the roster during his first year of his run. He had zero direction or story of note, and many felt that Swerve had future endeavors written all over him. Then WWE turned him heel and paired him with Top Dollar, B-Fab and Ashante the Adonis and became known as Hit Row. Swerve finally got the chance to show off his personality and charisma, and Hit Row was firing on all cylinders. There was definitely a cool factor to the group that was missing in WWE, and throughout Swerve's run in Hit Row, he demonstrated qualities of a main event star. But unfortunately, Vince McMahon didn't see him that way. Hit Row was called up to the main roster, and Vince felt that Top Dollar was the future headliner, not Swerve. Vince had stripped everything that made Hit Row unique and turned him into a generic faction that lost their sense of identity. Even worse, Swerve wasn't being treated as the main event star that he could have been, so it wasn't surprising when he was released in October 2021. Swerve made his AEW debut in March of 2022, and it did start off slow. Though it was cool that him and Keith Lee were a tag team, Swerve was being saddled back into mid-card purgatory, but then he started to get over once his feud with Hangman Adam Page started in 2023. Now the AEW star was slowly building his name as an interesting figure before his rivalry with Page, but the rivalry showcased just how much of a star Swerve Strickland really is. Their matches were brutal, violent and intense, and that's thanks to the tremendous character work that led into their bouts. Ever since that rivalry, Swerve has been able to maintain his status as a top star. The key thing is that Tony Khan actually gave him a chance to succeed, and Swerve crushed every opportunity he was given. Vince McMahon never saw Swerve as a top star, and it's also doubtful that Triple H would have put Swerve in such a position either. The booking of Hit Row's second run was simply terrible. It didn't help that Swerve not being there did more harm to the group, but Triple H never put them in a position to be elevated beyond enhancement talent. It's a good thing that Swerve ignored Triple H's phone call to return in 2022, as he likely would have never reached the same heights that he's accomplished in AEW. Number 2. Drew McIntyre. When Vince McMahon brought out McIntyre and coined him as the future world champion, the former WWE CEO wasn't wrong. The problem was that McIntyre simply wasn't ready for such a major push when the company tried to make him a major player. He didn't necessarily have much charisma, and McIntyre didn't particularly stand out from the other big men on the roster. It was quite clear that Drew was going to get featured in WWE when he went from the Chosen One to a comedy heel as part of the jobber group known as 3MB. 3MB had their fun moments, but it was clear that Vince McMahon gave up on McIntyre as future world champion. WWE releasing McIntyre allowed him to shed that goofy image and find his voice inside the ring. When McIntyre landed in TNA Wrestling in 2016, he was a repackaged character that felt comfortable on the mic and in the ring. Now let's be fair, his TNA run didn't start off too hot, but once he got away from the Rising nonsense, then he really started to shine as a blue-collar babyface. A huge reason that Drew is working so well in WWE is because of his time on the independent scene. Without being fired, he wouldn't have been given a chance to grow because Vince McMahon had simply given up on seeing McIntyre as something other than a comedy jobber. Sometimes it takes talent a while to progress as a performer, as not everyone can be a Kurt Angle and instantly get it within the first year. His second stint in WWE has been incredible, and while it's disappointing that his big WWE title run happened during the pandemic, Drew has successfully reinvented himself in his second run. Number 3. Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley is a lot like Drew McIntyre. Vince McMahon pushed this guy out of the gate, but it was clear that Lashley wasn't ready for the spotlight. Despite being in a top WrestleMania feud or even getting the opportunity to fight the devil himself, Vince McMahon, the problem with Lashley was that he was an extremely bland babyface. Lashley was fine as a performer, but there was simply nothing about him that stood out. But TNA is where he was able to finally gain some personality and charisma. His first stint in 2009 wasn't anything to write home about, however his second stint was fantastic. Lashley was part of the group with Low Ki, Kenny King, Samoa Joe and MVP, and these guys were what the Hurt Business should have been in WWE. Like McIntyre, it finally clicked for Lashley as a performer. He became more comfortable at speaking on the mic and his in-ring skills got better as well. The best part was that he was given dimension as a character, which allowed Lashley to show how dynamic of a performer he really was. Say what you will about TNA, but the company does an excellent job of creating stars out of WWE talents who were often treated as mid-carders at best. WWE almost killed Lashley's career in the beginning, especially after that Three Sisters segment. That was by far the lowest point. However, once they dropped the silly gimmicks and put him with MVP again, he was finally able to recreate the magic he had in TNA. Vince may have killed the Hurt Business, but Lashley still came out of their group looking like a true star. It kinda sucks that Triple H didn't see the value that Lashley brought during Vince's final years, but the former WWE champion is once again thriving in a new environment. He may not be world champion, but he's certainly in a better position now that when Triple H took over. Number 4. LA Knight. Did you guys know LA Knight was in WWE back in 2013? Knight was then known as Slate Randall, and with that name, you could only have jobber status. And this led to a short stint in WWE NXT. Now apparently Knight wasn't released because he lacked talent the first time around, he was released because people thought he was a jerk behind the scenes. There's no way to state whether this is true or not, but Knight is certainly a different man than he was in 2014. Once again, that's due to the magic at TNA. Problem with Knight before his resurgence is that he was just another guy in professional wrestling. There was nothing that particularly stood out about him, so we needed to find a gimmick that highlighted his strengths as a performer. So Knight started working on his trash talking and character work, and he also got influences from Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Ric Flair, Randy Savage, and Jake the Snake Roberts, which is obvious if you've seen any of LA Knight's promos. But that didn't come into fruition until late 2016. Early 2017, after Knight got away from his rising faction, he managed to make his persona fit naturally. Plus, it also helped that the guy was such a strong talker on the mic. More importantly, wrestling on the indies isn't just about getting a quick buck, it's about truly understanding the ins and outs of the business and maturing with it. And over a decade later, LA Knight has become one of the hottest WWE stars that could eventually become world champion someday, but only if WWE eventually pulls that trigger. Number 5. EC3. But sometimes Vince McMahon just doesn't get it. That happened to be the case with Ethan Carter 3. As going as Derek Bateman during the failed reality show of NXT, Bateman didn't stand a chance in his first stint because he was booked as a lower card act. So no one really had any expectations for Bateman once he was released from his contract in 2014, but TNA took a major risk with the former WWE star and instantly brought him in as their next top star. Bateman didn't particularly stand out during his time in WWE NXT, so it was questionable for TNA to give the WWE reject such a lucrative position, but Bateman passed the test with flying colors. Now going under EC3, or Ethan Carter 3 to be exact, his transformation from lower card jobber to entertaining main event act was a joy to watch. The former NXT star had tremendous mic skills, and being given the arrogant rich boy gimmick allowed him to really flex his acting muscles. His feuds with Rockstar Spud, Kurt Angle, and Matt Hardy are some of the best rivalries that the company has ever produced. Unfortunately for EC3, he didn't have the happy WWE ending like Drew McIntyre, and LA Knight, as his second stint was actually worse. Despite the hot buzz that he built up for himself, neither Triple H nor Vince McMahon seemed to understand what to do with the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He had a forgettable feud against Velveteen Dream, and for some reason Vince decided to give him a mute gimmick on the main roster. This was a guy who got over because of his tremendous mic skills, and WWE is a company where strong mic skills is a crucial part of any wrestler. Yet Vince thought that giving him a mute gimmick was the right path for him. You can tell he was mentally done with WWE during his final years. He may not be on the same level as he was during his TNA years, but he's still pretty successful as the face of NWA. Like Swerve, WWE is no longer the standard for what success is. EC3 would still be a lower card jobber if they decided to keep him, whereas now he has the freedom to explore his character on the indie scene. Some of it's worked, some of it hasn't, as the less said about controlling your narrative the better. Either way, the former NXT star found his own success without being attached to WWE. Number 6. Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose is certainly a strange case, as throughout her WWE career, WWE banked on Rose's sex appeal. There was plenty of risque segments such as Rose trying to seduce Jimmy Uso. In fact, Toxic Attraction was created to highlight the looks of Mandy Rose, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane. So when WWE instantly fired Rose because of her explicit content on Fantime, it was a head-scratching that the company used Mandy's sex appeal for clicks and views, but now released a former WWE star because she was banking on that said sex appeal. But Rose should also be credited for being a solid wrestler throughout her run. She found her stride during a second NXT run, and she carried herself as a star. It's just a shame that Rose will likely never step back into a wrestling ring. Though she's never stated that she's retired fully from pro wrestling, the amount of money that she makes on OnlyFans means that she doesn't have to take any back bumps on a weekly basis. Well, maybe one or two, but following a WWE release, Rose made over $1 million in the first 2 months. That's more money than most WWE stars make in 5 years. One fan actually spent $55,000 on the former WWE star's account. She's never disclosed the exact amount she's making on OnlyFans, but during her appearance on the Power Alphas podcast, she revealed that she's making 10 times more than her WWE salary.
I wake up when I want, do what I want, and I don't have to take bumps or be on the road for 300 plus days, and I basically make 10 times the amount of money that I made in WWE in 1 year.
Rose even discussed being released, and she's pretty much echoed the same sentiment about WWE using a sex appeal to monetize it.
Basically using me as this sex symbol in a way where they can monetize off of it. But then all of a sudden I go and do this on my own, just, having a direct relationship with my fans, doing exclusive content. And all of a sudden, within 24 hours, I get stripped from my 413 title reign. I get fired with zero warning. And I'm sitting there like, wait, what?
Now, it's unknown if we'll ever see Mandy Rose back in a WWE ring, but given the amount of money she's now making, it likely won't be anytime soon. Number 7. Kora Jade. Now, speaking of OnlyFans, Kora Jade is currently going on the path of Mandy Rose, and she's making bank as well. When Kora Jade was released from a contract back in May of 2025, it was a genuine shock, as it seemed that WWE was pushing the 24-year-old up to the next level. A Dave Meltzer claimed that Jade was released because she simply wasn't working hard enough. Unfortunately, we don't have any evidence to confirm or deny that claim, especially since it actually seemed as if Jade was getting better in the ring during her final months in NXT. Though Jade seemingly had aspirations to continue a wrestling career, her OnlyFans became so popular that she ended up making more than all of the female wrestlers on the WWE roster in the past few months. I know she was talking to somebody who I know, and she's probably made more money last month than any women pro wrestler in the world, probably by a lot because of OnlyFans. Mandy Rose set the template, and if you got the right look, you can do OnlyFans coming off a WWE run. Not everyone can do it obviously, but some can. I mean, Mandy Rose is incredibly rich from that, and it's the new thing, and more people are going to do it. Think about this. You want to do these indie dates for $1,000 when you're making that kind of money she's making. She may come back, but right now for her, she's just making an incredible amount of money. It's ridiculous. So good for her. Kora Jade just announced a break from pro wrestling, and if her sales are as good as Dave reports, then her time in the wrestling business may have come to a complete end. Number 8. Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona was in WWE for 15 years. He's a former US champion, a former Intercontinental champion, and a former WWE Tag Team champion. Yet it always felt that Vince McMahon only saw Cardona as Zack Ryder, an enhancement talent. He quickly dropped both the US and IC titles, and he was embarrassed on numerous occasions. It's unknown why Vince McMahon didn't see it with Ryder despite his popularity, but he needed to shed his WWE persona if he wanted to succeed on the indies. Now going by his real name Matt Cardona, it would have been easy for him to coast off his WWE fame as the guy who was set for life, but he managed to reinvent himself as the indie god and has proven how Vince McMahon made a mistake in not pushing him beyond mid-card. Cardona is proving that you don't need the WWE to be successful financially, although to be fair, it does help that his claim to fame is being a former WWE star, but nevertheless Cardona's persona emphasizes his charisma, and it got fans to see a different side of the former WWE star both in and outside of the ring. Cardona could return to WWE someday, but if he doesn't, he's managed to carve out a memorable career despite being nothing more than a lower card talent in WWE. Number 9. Toni Storm. How could we forget the whore that we all adore? Looking at Toni Storm now, it's amazing how much WWE fumbled one of the best women's wrestlers of this generation. Storm's best run was during her NXT UK days, where she was the queen of the women's division for 230 days. But once Storm dropped the NXT UK women's title and moved on to Florida for NXT, it seemed that Triple H just didn't understand how to use her. She consistently had good matches in the developmental brand, but her characterization was severely lacking in the brand. Man, it didn't get any better on the main roster. The most memorable thing that Toni Storm did on the main roster was have a pie hit her in the face. Toni Storm was absolutely miserable. You could see it every week that she came out to the ring during a SmackDown run. In 2021, she made the bold move of asking for a release, and on December 29, 2021, it was granted. Toni Storm made her way into AEW in 2022, and she got off to a rocky start. She didn't have much of a character, and fans could care less about the new AEW despite her being very talented in the ring. But then, Timeless Toni Storm was born. Out of the gate, the bizarre gimmick worked like a complete charm. Timeless Toni Storm was unique, and the AEW star was so in tune with her character. Every promo she delivered was filled with zingers and dripping with mountains of charisma. Toni Storm finally found a character that worked, and she's been the face of AEW's women's division for the past 2 years. Despite the gimmick being 2 years old, she's managed to keep it fresh by developing a character in fascinating ways. It helps that in-ring performances are top-notch, and a rivalry against Mariah May will go down as one of the best women's feuds of all time. The benefit of AEW's creative freedom is that it allows wrestlers to do things that WWE would never allow. The timeless gimmick is completely a WWE-style gimmick, but it's doubtful that anyone on Vince's or Triple H's team would have thought of it. And number 10, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes would still be Stardust if he didn't make the bold move by leaving WWE. Before AEW became a thing, the independent scene wasn't particularly known as lucrative because WWE was the pinnacle of pro wrestling. Throughout the first few years of Cody's WWE run, the company tried to push him, but Cody simply wasn't ready. His run in Legacy didn't help as the faction was essentially about a narcissistic leader who abused his minions. Those minions did happen to be second-gen superstars, but before the American Nightmare or Stardust, Cody looked like he was plucked straight out of Jersey Mike's. From the lack of knee pads to the generic wrestling attire, nothing screamed superstar about him during his first years in WWE. It didn't benefit either Ted DiBiase Jr. and Rhodes because there was zero evolution in their characters and they came out looking worse once Legacy disbanded in 2010. Now, God bet for Cody once he teamed with his brother and their feud against the Shield was one of the best rivalries WWE had this generation. But then Cody's career fell apart once he and Dustin lost the belts to the New Age Outlaws at 2014's Royal Rumble. He went on to have a lackluster feud with his brother and floated around the mid-card scene until he decided to leave WWE. No one expected Rhodes to become so big outside WWE, but that happened for several reasons. The first is that he shed his WWE image and was allowed to incorporate his personality into his character. The second was that Cody seemed more comfortable in his own skin, his promos were engaging, and he oozed charisma that he lacked in most of his time in WWE. He genuinely felt like a star, and his time on the indies helped him develop into one. Cody is a big reason why there was a wrestling boom in the late 2010s. Guys like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks shared that credit as well, but Cody not only revitalized his career, but he created an opportunity for dozens of wrestlers to have one outside of the WWE structure. Simply put, Cody wouldn't be the megastar that he is today if he didn't leave WWE in 2016. But there you have it, folks, 10 WWE firings that actually benefited a wrestler. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.